In Gaza, the simple act of feeding your family has become a daily gamble, a test of courage and desperation that no one should ever have to face. What was once a routine trip to get food is now a life or death decision, shadowed by fear and uncertainty at every turn. The search for food, just bread or flour, means risking your life, as every step toward an aid truck could be your last. Over 600 Palestinians have been killed and thousands more injured, not in battle, but while simply trying to survive. Since late May 2025, families have been torn apart, mourning loved ones lost in the chaos of aid distribution. These are not battlefield casualties, but ordinary people, mothers, fathers, children, caught in the crossfire of hunger and violence. The new aid system, run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, and supported by the U.S. and Israel, was meant to bring hope and relief to a starving population. But instead, it has become a deadly trap, where the promise of help is overshadowed by the constant threat of violence. Instead of safety, these heavily militarized sites are now described as death traps by the United Nations, places where hope and fear collide. Every family must weigh the agony of hunger against the terrifying risk of not returning home from the aid queue, forced to make impossible choices day after day. This is the story of how the promise of aid became entangled with bloodshed, and how survival itself has become the most dangerous act of all in Gaza. To truly grasp the depth of this crisis, we must look beyond the headlines and statistics. Listen to the voices of those who endure it every day. Their stories reveal the human cost behind the numbers. Wafer, a mother of 5, risks her life daily for food. She says, "I go to the GHF site knowing I might die, but my children's hunger is worse." For her, the fear of bullets is outweighed by the pain of watching her children starve. Each day she faces impossible choices, braving gunfire, chaos, and uncertainty, all for a few loaves of bread. Khalil, shot in the leg while waiting for flour, says, "Our food is mixed with our blood." His injury is not unique. Countless others have been wounded or killed simply trying to feed their families. These stories are echoed by thousands. Civilians forced into massive crowds at the few aid points, waiting for hours under the relentless sun, desperate for a chance at survival. The lines stretch for blocks filled with anxious faces and empty stomachs. When aid finally arrives, chaos erupts. People scramble for supplies, and the threat of violence is ever present, often met with live ammunition. Survivors describe soldiers firing into crowds, turning what should be a lifeline into a scene of carnage and terror. The fear of being shot is now part of the daily struggle for food. The psychological toll is immense. For many, the act of seeking aid is now associated with trauma, violence, and betrayal. Children and adults alike carry invisible scars. The international community sends food, but the system delivering it is killing people. Aid convoys are attacked, supplies are destroyed, and hope is shattered with every violent incident. For many, the breadline is now a front line, a war against hunger with a terrifying price. Each trip for food is a gamble with life and death. The very concept of humanitarian aid has been corrupted, twisted by violence and fear. What should bring relief now brings dread. In Gaza, survival means risking everything for a meal. Every bite is a victory. Every day endured is a testament to resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. The Global Humanitarian Framework, or GHF, was introduced as a new, supposedly efficient way to deliver aid in some of the world's most volatile regions. Promoted as a breakthrough in logistics and security, it promised to streamline the process and get help to those in need faster than ever before. The initiative is heavily backed by the U.S. and Israel, who tout it as a model for future humanitarian operations in conflict zones. But instead of relying on neutral international organizations, the GHF depends on private American security firms, companies with little experience in humanitarian work, but deep ties to military operations. Aid distribution is now consolidated into just 4 massive, heavily fortified sites, each under strict military control and surveillance. Hundreds of thousands of desperate people are forced to converge on these sites, leading to dangerous overcrowding, panic, and sometimes violence as they wait for basic necessities. The GHF bypasses established humanitarian agencies like the UN and Red Cross, erasing the neutrality and safety that these organizations have long provided in crisis zones. Armed soldiers and private contractors now stand side by side with aid workers, blurring the line between humanitarian relief and military enforcement, and putting both civilians and aid staff at greater risk. Critics have condemned the GHF as a scam humanitarian project, arguing that it's more about exerting control, generating profit for private firms, and advancing political interests than actually providing relief to those in need. The system punishes and subjugates, forcing people to submit to military authority just to access food, water, and medicine, turning aid into a tool of compliance rather than compassion. This is a fundamental violation of humanitarian principles, undermining the very idea of impartial and independent aid. In this new model, aid has become a tool of coercion, not care, leaving the most vulnerable to navigate a system built on power, not compassion. Before GHF, UNRWA ran over 400 decentralized aid points, schools, clinics, community centers, staffed by locals and built on trust. The UN system minimized risk and upheld dignity even during conflict. Now, 4 militarized GHF sites have replaced hundreds of safe havens, creating choke points and disaster. Families must travel miles, risking their lives for food. Over 100 NGOs have condemned the GHF, demanding a return to the UN-led system. The current model channels desperate people into kill zones. Aid recipients are treated as security threats, not humans in need. The shift has turned help into harm. The deaths at GHF sites are not accidents. Evidence shows Israeli soldiers are ordered to fire on civilians. Survivors and human rights groups report targeted, systematic shootings at aid lines. In just 2 days, one Red Cross hospital received over 370 gunshot victims from a single site. No Israeli soldier has been held accountable. The government blames stampedes or the UN. Human rights groups say this impunity enables further atrocities. The message to Gazans? Your lives do not matter. Seeking food has become a death sentence with no justice in sight. Gaza's crisis is a warning for the future of humanitarian aid. The GHF model merges aid with military control and private profit, weaponizing food as a tool of punishment and control. If accepted, this could become the norm in other conflict zones, aid workers as targets, impartiality erased. Experts warn this is the end of independent humanitarianism. Israeli officials have suggested making Gaza unlivable to force people out, depopulation through despair. Reports say Israel has approached African countries to accept Palestinian refugees for cash. By controlling food, Israel pushes people to the brink, making leaving seem like the only option. This is a slow, grinding erasure of a people through manufactured despair. Every day, Gaza's families face an impossible choice. Risk starvation or risk being shot for food. Parents gamble their lives, children watch them leave, not knowing if they'll return. The trauma is generational, the fear constant. The world's response has been insufficient. The deadly GHF system remains. Calls for a ceasefire and a return to safe, UN-led aid have gone unheeded. Gazans are left alone, trapped between hunger and bullets. This is a story of catastrophic failure to protect basic human rights. Until the world acts, the price of bread in Gaza will be paid in blood.